It was supposed to be just another morning for Vincent Hale, a billionaire known for his ruthlessly efficient business empire. He was on his way to inspect one of his new factory sites at the edge of the city, a place most of his colleagues had never even seen. But fate had something else written for him that day. As his black car rolled down a dirt road leading past a sprawling landfill, the stench of decay filled the air. Vincent frowned, lowering his window halfway, ready to tell his driver to speed up. But then he saw something. Something that made his heart pound in disbelief. Amid the endless mounds of trash, a woman in a torn blue uniform sat on the ground, clutching a small, crying boy. Her eyes were swollen, her hair tangled, her apron filthy. Yet there was something hauntingly familiar about her face. Vincent squinted and his breath caught. That was Maria, his maid, the woman who had once worked in his mansion, who had served his family breakfast with a gentle smile every morning. Now she was crying in a dump, holding a child as if the world had ended. If you believe kindness and second chances can change a life, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Every click helps stories like this one reach more hearts. Vincent jumped out of the car before his driver could even stop it. The dirt clung to his polished shoes as he ran down the slope toward her. The closer he got, the clearer the horror became. Her uniform, once crisp and clean, was torn. Her hands were bleeding, and the child she held was trembling, his lips cracked from thirst. "Maria," he called out, his voice trembling. The woman looked up, startled, and when her eyes met his, she froze. For a moment, neither spoke. She tried to stand, but her legs buckled. The boy buried his face in her chest, wailing. Vincent knelt beside them, his expensive suit brushing against the filth of the ground. But he didn't care. All he could see was a mother's pain. Raw, helpless, unbearable. In the hours that followed, the story began to unfold piece by piece. Maria had worked for Vincent for nearly 2 years. She had been quiet, always kind, never complained, even when her shift stretched long into the night. But a month ago, she vanished without a word. Vincent's assistant said she'd resigned and left a short note. He hadn't questioned it then, people came and went all the time. But now, as he listened to her voice shake, he realized the truth was far darker. Maria's husband had died suddenly, leaving behind a mountain of debt. Desperate, she borrowed money from a predatory lender to pay for the funeral and her son's medicine. But when she couldn't repay in time, the debt collector began showing up at her small apartment, threatening her. She was terrified, not just for herself, but for her little boy, Theo. When she begged for help from her landlord, he threw her out. Within days, she had nowhere to go. She had tried to reach out to the agency that hired her as a maid, but they refused to forward her message to Vincent, claiming she'd already been replaced. Left with nothing, she wandered the streets until she ended up here, scavenging for food in the dump to keep her son alive. Vincent's chest tightened with guilt. He was a man who could spend millions in an afternoon. Yet one of his own employees had suffered like this right under his nose. The sight of her trembling hands, the child's hollow eyes, the thinness of their bodies, it was more than he could bear. He felt a rush of shame, followed by something he hadn't felt in years, a deep aching compassion. Without hesitation, he lifted Maria and her son into his car. The smell of decay filled the air, but he didn't flinch. He ordered his driver to take them to the nearest hospital. For the next few days, Vincent visited them every morning. He watched as doctors cleaned their wounds, gave them food, and provided warmth. Theo began smiling again, shyly, holding on to Vincent's fingers whenever he came near. Maria, however, could barely look him in the eye. She kept apologizing, saying she didn't mean to cause trouble. But Vincent silenced her gently each time. He knew the real trouble had been his blindness, his failure to see the suffering of someone who had once quietly served his home. One evening, as the sun dipped beyond the city skyline, Vincent stood by the hospital window, thinking. For years he had measured success in numbers, profits, deals, properties. But standing here watching Maria's fragile hand stroke her son's hair, he realized how hollow all of it was. The empire he had built seemed meaningless compared to the quiet act of saving a life. That night, he made a decision that would change not just Maria's life, but his own. He set up a foundation in her name, the Maria Hope Trust, dedicated to helping domestic workers who faced abuse, homelessness, or debt. He provided housing, health care, and education for their children. Maria, despite her initial disbelief, became one of its coordinators, helping other women like her find safety and dignity again. It took months for her to rebuild her confidence, But when she finally smiled again, Vincent felt something shift inside him, as if a long-frozen part of his heart had begun to thaw. But the real moment of transformation came one afternoon when little Theo walked into Vincent's office carrying a crayon drawing. It showed Vincent, Maria, and Theo standing together in a bright green field with the sun shining above them. Underneath it, the boy had written in shaky letters, "Thank you for finding us." Vincent stared at it for a long time, feeling tears rise to his eyes. He had closed so many deals in his life, but this small, innocent gesture was the greatest return he had ever received. From that day on, Vincent changed the way his company worked. He began meeting every staff member personally, listening to their stories, ensuring no one was ever treated as invisible again. His mansion, once cold and silent, became a place of laughter. Maria continued working there, not as a maid anymore, but as the manager of his foundation, while Theo attended school. Nearby, his future bright once more. When people asked Vincent why he spent so much of his time on charity, he would simply smile and say, "Because one day, I found someone in a place no human being should ever be. And that day, I found myself, too." If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps us spread more stories of compassion, redemption, and humanity. Before we end, tell us in the comments below, what would you have done if you were in Vincent's place? And as the camera fades on Vincent watching Maria and Theo laugh in the garden, the wind carrying the sound of their joy, one truth remains clear. Sometimes the richest people in the world are not those with the